Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning. I'm happy to introduce Caverly Morgan this morning. Caverly is the founder and guiding teacher of the nonprofit that I work for here in Portland, Oregon, Peace in Schools. We teach a 4-credit mindfulness elective in high schools. And Caverly, as many of you by now, I'm sure know, who have been joining for these morning meditations, is also the founder and guiding teacher with Presence Collective. By way of announcements, I want to mention that next Thursday, June 4th, there will be a Presence Collective webinar at 2 p.m. Pacific time with David Perrin. Also, by way of announcements, there is a course being offered via Sangha Live called Bridge to Happiness, which is available on demand. I'll put a link for it in the chat box shortly after Caverly comes on this morning. And that, she mentioned to me this morning, if folks really enjoyed some of the process mapping that has been happening during these meditations, that the Bridge to Happiness course might be especially intriguing for folks. And then last thing to announce is that Caverly was just interviewed for a Mindfulness and Compassion Global Summit, and that airs, there will be many other teachers, that airs June 4th through 6th, so I'll put information for the Global Summit in the sidebar after Caverly comes on as well. She was interviewed with Dr. Sarah King, who's done really fascinating work on the science of social justice. One more announcement actually is that these morning meditations have been extended at least into June, sort of indefinitely. So that's good news. As always, there will be a 30-minute guided meditation followed by a Q&A. Please ask your question in the Ask a Question spot down here or in the sidebar. Please indicate if you're willing to try coming online. And the very last thing, of course, as always, if you find yourself able to donate and support Sangha Live, bringing teachers into our homes, will you please click on that green donate button? And thank you very much from those especially who aren't able to donate at this time. And with that, I will bring Caverly on.
Hi, Cassandra. Thank you so much for your service. Thank you for being here. Friends, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you, community. Thank you, Sangha. Deborah, Jan, Richard, Sam, John, and Nancy. We'll see. Nancy, you might have heard. I don't know if you really exist. Evelyn, John, thank you. And I really am. You've got to come in someday, my friend whose last name is Eliza, and tell me how to say your name. Or maybe that's your first name, and it's your last name I'm stumbling over, but hello from Amsterdam. As always, just lovely to see folks from Paris and Amsterdam and Germany and France and California, Portland, London, the Outer Banks, and I know John and Nancy, you're in Virginia, Truckee. Yeah, friends, thank you. Hello from Texas, Mary Jane. So, hello to you from Portland. It's sunny and warm here today. And I come into this space today with a heavy heart based on many different expressions of racism and white supremacy that are happening in our country right now. I've really sat with the way in which, if you're not located in the United States right now, this news has different weight for you, different weight if you haven't been steeped in the American history of 400 years of the flavor of oppression that we've had in our country. And I wanted to create space recognizing that all of our experiences are going to be different. And So if you're in France or London, today's meditation, I invite you to just allow whatever might feel heavy in your heart, if there's anything that feels heavy in your heart. And one of the reasons I wanted to focus on this today, friends, is I see so much temptation in the meditation community to move away from whatever's happening and to try to create a meditation space and practice as a safe haven away from what is. And we focused on this yesterday, but I wanted to continue. With this. How might we allow our practice to be the space in which we're cultivating our capacity to be with what is, and therefore not need to avert our eyes from what is. Another way we could talk about this is building our capacity to move in rather than cultivating a practice that attempts to, that moves out and often uses language like, well, I'll just transcend that. I'll skip over that and just go straight to an experience. Let's just say of oneness. Yes, we are one, and because we are one, we feel it when one of us is not well. It affects all. When one of us is not well. So allowing ourselves to use this space as an opportunity to access our care, whatever it is that is in your reach, that's affecting you, that you care about, that perhaps sometimes there's a conditioned tendency to try to disassociate or again bypass. Yeah, beautiful. Jessica, that was the spirit of your yoga this morning. Being with what is, powerful medicine for healing and loving truly. That was the spirit of my yoga this morning, dedicated to all who are feeling stress. Lovely. So if you're coming into this meditation and you actually haven't been feeling a lot of weight or sadness or stress or pressure, wonderful. You can cultivate today's meditation as a type of offering to the world. Beautiful, Jessica. Thanks for writing in. If you're sitting with heaviness or feeling tender in the face of world events, again, this is manifestations of injustice and oppression are not only happening in one place in the United States. It's a global experience. It's a human experience. Yeah. So thank you, Linda. Caring for what is. Let's focus on care together. Before we do anything else, may we establish who we are. May we name, recognize, and touch and know the experience of who we are. May that be first. Do this by going straight to the experience of being, your very being. If that direction doesn't ignite anything for you, it doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong, there's nothing bad happening. Use the support of the breath or sound as an anchor. If there's so much distraction going on that going to your own being can't even land anywhere. Perhaps taking 3 of the longest and deepest inhalations and exhalations you've taken yet today, just to settle in. This experience of being isn't esoteric. It's not some exotic, bright, shiny experience. It's what's most familiar to you, actually. It's the experience that is the most intimately here and now. That of simply being. We can't truly support others in the most full way possible if we're coming at, quote unquote, helping others from identification, from the identification with the conditioned mind that suggests that we're separate or broken or not whole. So begin by going directly to our shared experience of inherent wholeness and inherent goodness. from this seat of wholeness. From resting in your being, just notice without judgment, is there anything that you've been habituated, conditioned to try to push away internally or externally? We're not just looking through your whole life and picking something. We're asking, what now? What's arising now that there might be a conditioned tendency to want to avoid? Again, it could be something internal, like I'm trying to avoid or push away that fear that keeps arising. I don't want to see it. I don't want to work with it. I keep getting identified with that within that is trying to hold it at bay. Could be something that you would name as external. I don't want to see the events of the world. I don't want to see this oppression, this injustice. I don't want to feel it, be with it. It's not bad or wrong to be identified with the temptation to hold it at bay. But we won't know our liberation, our inherent liberation, if we remain identified with that process. So see that resistance or habit to avoid for what it is in this moment. If that's not present for you, no problem. Turn down the volume on my voice for a bit and just rest in being. Another way we could talk about this is if there's any discomfort present. Maybe you haven't resonated with any specific resistance or avoidance, but perhaps you're just present to discomfort. Move into the discomfort with your attention. Remember, you're moving in to this discomfort from the recognition of your wholeness, from awareness itself. Recognize the loving and compassionate quality inherent in this kind of attention. Perhaps you've been feeling sadness or heaviness, sorrow or grief. With any emotion that's here and now, follow this same loving thread of moving in, becoming more intimate with your experience rather than moving away from it, out of it, observing it, and then perhaps even trying to transcend it, get over it, bypass it, move into what's here. Increase the intimacy. Increase the love. Like having a new lover and wanting to know everything about him or her or them, being so eager to move into that experience of learning, exploring, being curious, ignited by that curiosity. Move in. Allow yourself to enjoy the exploration of your experience, knowing that you're exploring from the purity of untarnished awareness, awareness that is not disturbed by strong emotions, awareness that is not broken by the pain of the world. Explore your experience with this light of pure knowing, pure seeing. Resisting nothing and pushing nothing away. Clinging to nothing and calling nothing your own. Rest in this right relationship with what is. Right meaning true, not right as the opposite of wrong. Rest in this true relationship with what is. This relationship that's not a relationship at all. But rather the intimacy of being. From this intimacy, from the peace of the intimacy of your own being, the intimacy of knowing your own being. You may be inspired to offer this peace to others and to the world. Do so freely, with love and care. Offer presence. If it feels to you that you don't have care to offer others now, if there's so much pain or hurt that it feels that there's nothing left over, let it be so for now. Don't apply any extra pressure to turn this meditation into a specific thing. Allow the loving attention arising out of pure awareness to lick the wounds of your own heart if that is needed in this moment. Let what is be. Thank you, friends. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Yeah, thank you, Spencer, for your comment. Surprising, sobering. Much gratitude for this meditation. Yes, as always, friends, I'm grateful to be here with you together. An important time to focus on collective care and collective presence. Now is my reminder time, my reminder moment. Please donate if you can so that we can continue to be a collective in this form. Spencer, you'd be welcome to come on. Thank you. And I remember John, I believe it's John from Truckee, not to be confused with John and Nancy from Virginia. John Whedon or John Weed. John, you are most welcome to come on today if you would like to. So, Cassandra, thanks for seeing if you can get Spencer on this morning. And then perhaps, John, you'd be up for coming on next. You'd be most welcome to. In the meantime, as we're waiting for Spencer to come on, John, good. Feel free to write a word or phrase, anything you're present to following that meditation, anything you're present to in this moment. Feel free to write that in the sidebar. Sort of if we were in a room together, I would be doing, as a facilitator, I'd be inviting popcorn style naming of what's here now. So feel free to write something in if you'd like to. What's here now?
Good morning.
Well, hello.
Can you hear me?
Hello, John. I certainly can.
Fabulous.
Lovely to see you. Yeah.
It's lovely to see you and to be with you again.
Yeah.
I'm part of the SAM community, and I was first exposed to some of your inspiration from Bat Gap a couple years ago.
Oh, how lovely.
I listened to that interview. But yesterday what you said really caught my attention. What you said about meditation not being something to transcend or get away from the world, but as a resource to be in the world. And I've been leading a Monday night meditation group for about 15 years. And this last week, we've been talking about orienting, which is just kind of looking around and being there, and grounding, getting in your body, and then this resourcing or pendulating in order to have a resource. And so it just really hit home with me that meditation is this resource for a way of being in the world and being more fully present, because it's all these difficult things that cause the distractions and pull us away from being here in this moment. And
yes, amen.
It just
very well said.
It just really hit home for me when you said that. Then, of course, you added Francis Lucille's the yes to everything, or the universal yes, because what I share is really that that meditation is practice of letting go. It's letting go of our resistance to what is, and that's the way that we managed to get here. in this place now.
Yes,
so yes.
Yes.
I just wanted to thank you because it really hit home and gave me something to share again this week.
Beautiful. Yeah, beautiful. John, I think it's so lovely that you're, we can't have too many meditation groups right now. We can't have too many people coming together to be in presence together. And I tend to care a lot about, especially if we're willing in our meditation groups to not use meditation as some thin way to escape what is happening in the world. So in light of what you were bringing back into the space about Francis Lucille's yes, that's actually not a form of yes, is it? To try to have my meditation practice be this isolated experience of peace and well-being that's actually walled off from the world, from others. So how do we resort? How do we allow our experience of presence to be a resource so that we may be in the world in a way that is reflective of the deepest truth of our interconnection and shared being?
Yes, I just did have a question for you, because sometimes people are really, I also like the fact that you brought in what's happening in the world that should break our hearts open, and that we should be aware and understand that it's part of the whole thing, that helps us to be open. But the difference between really breaking our hearts open and trying to change the world in a way that we think it should be. How do we manage to get through that place? Because that's interesting to me,
It's a very, very interesting place, isn't it? Because we're deeply conditioned to only know how to approach change from a type of resistance to what is, aren't we?
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
I want to change this from my own identification with all the ways in which I am maintaining the illusion of separateness. Where we get stuck, I think, in meditation practice is that we forget how much change is possible were we to approach the world from that universal yes, from the understanding. Remember, yes doesn't mean, oh, I love it and I wish there was more of it. It means, yes, we've had 400 years of oppression and marginalization. Yes, I recognize that. I see that. I'm not turning away from that. From my love of humanity, from my love of the world, how might I then move from love, from an understanding that manifestation of oppression is a breach in the recognition of our shared being. That just moving in the world from that seat, if you will, that's change making.
Mm-hmm.
We know what it's like to move through the world from, I'm just going to be on the other side of the duality and fight this side of the duality.
Yeah, thanks. That hits it right there. That's something to share.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much.
John, thank you. It's really rich to have you come on. I appreciate getting to see you, and thanks for that little context. It's always, I never know these seeds that get thrown out into the world. I never know what happens with them, and it's always sweet. I love that Rick Archer is such a dear soul who hosts the Back Gap platform, the Buddha at the Gas Pump, and I remember that conversation with him. He's just a lovely, lovely, lovely man. So thank you. And thank you
Thank
for
you.
your practice. All right, that was very nice to see. John, anyone else that would like to come on screen? I trust that there's an issue maybe with Spencer's technology today, or something on with the technology. Anyone else that would like to come on screen, please say so in the sidebar. And I'm just going to go ahead and catch up with some of these comments here. Linda, the power of good. Spencer, it worked. Hello.
Good.
Good to see you.
Good. Thank you. It's good. Always good to see you.
Yeah.
In the meditation, I went to what's going on in my heart, which had also a lot to do with those two incidents this week of racism, one being a murder. And in both times, I saw my heart going out to the victims, and then hatred towards the perpetrators. And I definitely I had to turn back inside about that, and saw that it is my judgment, it's my hatred that is the source. My hatred is their racism. It's my prejudice towards racism or towards anything. It's my judgment. And then further, it's my judgment against myself. And this seems like, and I saw the question on question part, and it seems very, very similar. It's just a bypass to go and hate them.
Mm-hmm.
Hate these people. Those people are so full of, they're so full of pain, and they don't even know it.
Yeah. Well, Spencer, I have a confession. You drew my attention to the comment from Linda, and so I was just checking to see how it was relating to what you said, and I missed your last sentence. Say your last sentence one more time, please.
I have no idea what it was.
Okay. I just want to make sure. So yes, Spencer, I'm tracking everything you're saying, that it's been really important for you to basically trace this projection back. You saw hatred arise, you saw, and there's nothing wrong with that hatred arising. That hatred arose from your upset around what's going on. The anger is the second layer. It's on top of that pain or that upset or that fear. So good to see, and important in practice as you're naming, to trace it back to see, okay, what's happening here? You know, may we do that in practice? May we trace back to see what is happening here? And you, again, I appreciate you drew my attention to Linda's question, which I hadn't read yet. And I'd like to tie what you're saying in with what she's acknowledging. She's acknowledging that she's been practicing in a group. I actually don't want to paraphrase, a meditation that focuses on, involved with the meditation. It might not be a group, but involved with the meditation that focuses on the light within the last few years. And recently, my work with anti-racism, I've begun to practice caring for what is needing care as the way to both personal and collective liberation. I'm now feeling I was practicing a type of spiritual bypass with the former practice.
That's what I'm saying.
I see the connection, Spencer, and it is sort of a natural theme that's arising in these last two meditations, yesterday and today, isn't it? How might we move in rather than avoid, move away from? Because as you're pointing to, there's much for us to see in the moving in process.
Yes, always. And
there's much for us to see about what we project, how we get identified with our conditioning, how we perpetuate systems of othering. And then there's also much for us to see in terms of much for us to have the opportunity to embrace, specifically things that we've been holding at bay. How have we been othering externally? How have we been othering internally?
Yeah. Because it's like by identifying with the victim and holding that person in the heart, which is wonderful to do that. But then it's the blaming them, and then it's my judgment against them, and then it's ultimately my judgment against myself. And that's
because Spencer, there is no self. Yes, because there is no self in others.
yeah.
So what we do out there, we're doing in here.
I've heard that and quoted it and not gotten it like today. Thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you, Spencer. Thanks for calling in. Thanks for telling us about your experience. I know that it is the case that many people relate. I know that I do. Thank you. Thank you. All right, so lovely to have folks be able to come on screen. If there's anyone else that would like to, I'd love to see you. We have time for one more. Ellen, how different the world might be if the United States would take love as action. Absolutely, how different our world would be. And that, just to sort of spell it out, that's why we began the meditation, by going to the recognition of who we truly are, resourcing by starting there. Joyce, I've always avoided a good coping mechanism. I'm now seeing maybe I can embrace instead. Lovely. Yeah, lovely. It is a conscious choice. Yevlin, acceptance versus resignation in such situations. Absolutely, a very important distinction. Acceptance is not the same thing as resignation. Chris, thank you so much. Hugs. Joyce, you could come on. Lovely. I want to acknowledge that, Linda, if you want to unpack that a bit and you'd like to come on, please do come on. I'm not sure if unpack that means more than what we just had a chance to do or name, but you could also come on tomorrow, given that it might be that Joyce will be our last share. Joyce, it's great to see you. Thank you for coming on.
So again, yeah, this is just something that I've always avoided because I don't want the pain of sadness. And so I've just, blissfully gone about that. And I don't really I haven't really seen the benefit of embracing or going in.
Yeah. And Joyce, because I know you well, I know that you won't be fettered by me pointing out that it's easy for us to do that as white people.
Yeah.
To really call that for what it is.
Mm-hmm.
We have the privilege of disassociating. Now, it's not really a privilege. We suffer deeply. When we disassociate or bypass, we actually suffer deeply. We pay the price for that behavior. But it is a privilege. There's so many people that don't have the option of, I'll just go la, 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 la.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I'm able to see from what we talked about today that maybe if I can look at these things from presence and totally disidentify, which I don't because I get sucked into hatred or whatever, that if I could look at it from that perspective, then that kind of takes the pain away. But it's just hard to do that and hard to stay in that place.
It can be very hard to stay in that place, but that's why our practices are so important. If we've been cultivating the capacity to be with what is, to stay in presence, whether we hear, for example, you've been practicing a long time now, you know how to stay present, even when you hear the voice of the inner critic. There's the voice of the inner critic. I can be with that. I cannot identify with that. I don't confuse that as me. You know that process. It doesn't mean you always are disidentified and you never fall for the story of the inner critic. It means you know that's in your bones now as a practice. We can do the same thing with what's happening beyond the confines of our own mind. The confines of our own mind is a story. You know, that a practice that reinforces the idea that we're just working within the limitations of our own mind and sees thought forms as just limited to, contained in an isolated mind doesn't honor the reality that we are not limited to these body minds, that this conditioning is collective, that it's not something that you own personally. Even the story of this sort of personal ego doesn't take into account the story aspect of it. The story of personal ego does make us feel like an individual, private, separate self, but that narrative doesn't take into account what we could call collective ego, or the way in which that egoic structure actually isn't limited to a person at all. It just makes us feel that way.
Yeah. Something to think about.
Yeah. Something to stay with.
I stay with, not think about it.
Don't think about it too much.
Yeah, thank you.
I really appreciate you naming that and practicing with that. Thank you for sharing. All right, friends, so rich. These last two meditations, following this theme of moving in, I just invite you to have that as a practice. That's our homework assignment for the weekend. How might I move in rather than away? May I see the places that I move away? May I embrace what is? May I embrace the world? May I embrace life from presence, from the intimacy of being. Thank you, and hopefully I will see you Monday. Good Lord willing, and the creek don't rise.